Hitting the button now. Okay, it says we're going live. It says we're live. Things seem to be moving quickly today. Does that mean that the internet connection is strong? I don't know. But here we are. Oh, and nobody will know what I'm talking about because we haven't even decided, but some of the ideas I was throwing at you earlier for this summer, I think we'll have to take in peak internet usage into consideration.
Yeah.
So, hi. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help Kingsters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. This is our weekly live stream while we record our audio podcast, the audio version of which hits all major podcast apps every Friday. We are here, as of right this moment, 9 minutes early before our official start time. If you arrive later, like after the stream, and you don't like idle chit-chat, you should fast forward by 9 minutes. Eventually, I'll get timestamps in, but sometimes it takes me a hot minute. If you're here for the live stream and you don't like idle chit-chat, I think you might have wandered into the wrong place, but you have time to go, like, wander off for a little bit and then come back. Because we actually do try to start actually on time, but we've had so many tech issues over the years of recording anything that we know that if we get here early, we have a chance of fixing stuff. You know, like the time that we were steady talking for like 5 minutes before we realized that nobody could hear us.
Yeah.
So.
And then, you know, there was the time during the Patreon Q&A when we were in the middle and the thick of things, and Lola decided she was going to knock the tripod down.
Yep.
So, you know, it you can try, but, you know.
Yep. So, Yeah, so we're here early. So I'm going to start saying hi to folks. Hi, Crow. Congrats for being number 1. Hi, Tayshu. Hi, Giga. Hi, Silent Wing. Hi, Mr. Spock. Hi, Mally. Hi, Tiana. Oh, I need new glasses or to clean them. Sorry, I'm leaning forward. Is it Khaleesi? Khaleesi? If I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me, but hello. Hi, Fly. Hello.
Now, see, I would take the chance and say Khaleesi.
I would, too. That was
Like,
where my mind went, but...
Yeah.
I
then
know.
again, you know, I see something like that. I have a Game of Thrones thing going on.
I've had the same thing, but also my legal name is not a name that most people of certain generations can just read. They want to try and be phonetic about it, so I get it. Is it Beckenroom? Hello. If it's something else, tell me. Hi, Karen. Hi, Yarn and Whiskey. Oh, the first way, Khaleesi. Yay! I think that's what I said the first way. Look, I like to think of myself as a relatively intelligent human being, and yet I feel like I have the memory of a gnat most of the time. Hi, Sebastian. Oh, and welcome to your first live. I hope we don't scare you off. So let's start with hi, Andre, the usual things. We do not have links to the shirts. They are shirts that we've worn several times. They were gifted. Yep. We love them. I say this every time. Now that I know how these shirts are made, people have asked us to make shirts. Now that I know how these shirts are made, I'm actually less inclined to make them. Which is probably, I don't know. Stranger things have happened, so. Hi, Eva. Hi, enjoying the view. Oh, good. I like being background noise. Then I feel less awkward. Like, can they see that maybe there's lipstick on my teeth? Is there lipstick on my teeth?
No.
Okay, good. If anybody ever wonders, why do you always wear a matte lipstick? It's because the ones I have found that I like dry down and then do not get on my teeth. They might wear away over the course of an episode if I do a lot of coffee drinking, but they do not. As long as I let them dry and I I know what to do, it's not moving. So, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah. I am very much out of sorts today. We were talking about this before we started recording.
You are.
I think we're going to start switching some things up. I have some ideas you and I have to go over. I have not eased back into recording the way I thought I would.
No, you haven't, which is shocking. I thought it would be me that would have trouble.
And you're actually way more gung-ho. We were supposed to, normally we would record whatever our next Monday video is going to be before we do the live stream. And because I'm having software issues with my video editing software, I have not even edited the last one we made. And so I was like, I do not want to record another one and then have them all piled up until we figure out what video editing software we're going to use or what we're going to do. And I don't know. Andre, I have not checked mail because now that we're in summer break, I don't have an easy. We need to go check mail.
Yeah, we do need to go check mail.
So it may have, I just haven't gone to the post office.
Yeah, no, we've not been leaving the house very much of late.
And Mr. Spock, no, I do not like being up on a 55-inch TV. I'm thinking our lighting is mostly decent because nobody's ever gone, holy crap, your pores. You could, like, row a canoe in those things. Also, I need to stop looking in mirrors that are the 10 times magnification. Because nobody should look at their pores on that level. I don't think it's good for anybody's self-esteem. But also, no. Hi, Kim.
There's a pun there, but I just can't get it to surface.
Hi, Mel. No, I got nothing for this. Is the butt rub for anybody who is new to us completely. I hope we have not scared you away, but if you aren't immediately intrigued within like the first 5 or 6 minutes of whatever this has been, we probably aren't your people anyway. But the butt rub, normally it's like a mini bonus section, but I got nothing other than existential crises.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mel. Is it the skincare? Is it the lighting? I don't know. I'll take it.
Either way, take it.
I'm not looking at a mirror that magnifies everything by 10 times. That's probably. Don't anybody zoom in. I don't know. I don't know if it'll just pixelate and I'll just look like. I don't know. I don't know what'll happen. I don't know.
It's been Mr. Toad's wild ride around here this morning, folks.
I'm in a weird headspace. And Nikki, migraines do suck. I had one that lasted a couple days. Was it last week? Over the weekend? Time has no meaning.
Yeah.
So I feel ya. And whether it's light or noise sensitivity, whatever it is that gets you, if you got to turn us off, it's fine. We'll be here later. It's fine. I totally get it. It's fine. Mel, I went with the less is more on my makeup and purposely tried for a more natural, like instead of like a full beat. The sad thing is I use a BB cream that I love from e.l.f. Costs $6. It's great in person and on camera. That is hard to come by sometimes. My Skin But Better kind of finish in person. And they do not, I think they must be discontinuing their BB cream because they don't have my color anymore. I can't find it anywhere. And I don't know what other BB cream is similar to it. And I am very sad because I really like that foundation. Yeah. So if anybody, who does makeup has like it's not really a dupe because e.l.f. BB cream would be the dupe because it's the $6 one. But if anybody's like, this one is like that one, let me know. Just saying. Because this is a foundation I would wear daily. Whereas what I usually wear for recording is too heavy for me to like wearing it when I just have to go out on the Florida heat. It's fine. It's perfect for in front of camera. Like, I don't look like I have pores then either. But also, yeah, I'm so out of sorts. I haven't even wanted to do, like, my purples or my pinks as eyeshadow like I have done in the past. I know. So, yeah. No, I think I'm ready to change some things up with content. Weekly podcast / live stream would not go anywhere. I enjoy that too much. It's just some other stuff. I don't know. Sometimes you don't have to like burn it all down. You just got to tweak things. Even though I tend to go, you know what we should do? We should burn it all to the ground and just do something completely different. I'm an all or nothing kind of person sometimes. So
it's 12 noon.
I know we should actually get started.
Yeah.
So if you're still here, if you arrived at the top of the live, or if you came later and you fast forward or whatever, you're still here. Hi. If you like what you see, we don't scare you off. We love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want more, and I don't know why you would, but if you do, it's fine. We appreciate that. Please consider subscribing.
And once you subscribe, ring the notification bell so you get updates of new content.
Just do what Daddy says.
Yeah.
If you want more of this in different ways, you can maybe consider joining us on Patreon. We've got a Discord with super cool, super nice Kinksters. We've got behind the scenes stuff. We do a monthly live Q&A where it's a bit like this. It's a bit like a hangout, but also we answer questions. And you can do that through Patreon, patreon.com/killlords. Link in the description box. You can join for as little as $2 a month. Yeah, so there is that. There are no links for our shirts this week. They were gifted. We love them. Yes, people have said they would love ones like this. I'm not promising anything ever. I think that's all the news that is the news until you hit the...
I can do the button.
Button so the podcast folk get to join us.
Okay.
Okay, so this week's episode centers around a conversation about a book we've read, so it felt appropriate for my very vanilla Etsy shop that is book themed to sponsor. Put air quotes around that. Is it sponsoring when it's yours? I don't think so, but that's the handy word we've got. If you like cute things that are book themed, you should check out my Etsy shop. I got stickers, I got bookmarks, I've got blind date with a book. I've got books that all I give you are little hints about it. And if it sounds good to you, you basically get a mystery book in the mail that I wrapped myself. And I'm not a crafty person, but I can wrap things.
You do
wrap with a W, not R-A-P, anything. That would be terrifying. So yeah, I just remind folks that it exists. I am adding new products all the time. So if you don't see anything that like catches your eye right now, just favorite the shop. That'll work too. I've got some bookmarks that like paper bookmarks that are on their way being shipped. I designed them, but then having them printed. And then some other things that are in the works. So there is that. Yay. So this week's topic is a redo. And not really a redo because opinions have changed, a redo because we read a book. So we talked back in 2019 about teamwork because we believe that is an important part of power exchange for us. And it is not for everybody, but I think some of the reasons that some people struggle with power exchange and setting up their power exchange relationship is because they are probably more geared towards teamwork and collaboration than they are to what in the book we read calls adversarial, where you do the thing I told you to do without question. Submissive does the thing without question, and there's not a lot of back and forth about it. I think some people do struggle with that because that's the model that they see, but it doesn't work for them. Then here we are with teamwork. So we gave our opinions and our experience on how we view that back in 2019. If you have not watched that, heard that, whatever, it is linked in the places. You can go back and hear our thoughts. I really don't think our thoughts have changed that much. If anything, they maybe have become more nuanced. We've maybe just done it longer that we, I don't know how to say it, but basically we've refined some of our opinions. But in this case, we saw this book came up on our radar. Somebody recommended it, maybe several somebodies. I don't remember anymore. If you were one of them, thank you. But I don't remember if you were. And we finally got a chance to read it. And then I think both of us ended up like highlighting half the book. Okay. That book is called Building the Team, Cooperative Power Dynamic Relationships by Raven Kaldera and Joshua Tenpenny. They are a master-slave dynamic, and the book is basically both of their viewpoints sort of combined into one nice package. They, in that book, have this conversation and share what they know, similarly to the way you and I tend to share things, but they're more concise and more professional. Links to the books are in the places as well. I did the Amazon link for those folks who just, use Amazon because it tends to be more affordable for them. I also included a link. It's an affiliate link to a place called bookshop.org. If you are a person who's like, I really would rather support indie bookstores, this is a great site to do that through. They don't always have every book like Amazon does, but they have a lot, and they had this one. If you use that link, we are affiliates who make a small commission, disclosure. But you have options if you're like, I'm trying to get away from Amazon. This has nothing to do with the topic, but we are actually shopping a little bit less on Amazon, not for ethical reasons, but for cost-effective reasons. Sometimes Amazon is not the cheapest anymore.
No, they're not.
That's a thing. So, because we've had the conversation already on teamwork that are just our thoughts, this conversation, we want to use the book as the central theme, but we don't just want to give you a synopsis. The synopsis is they talk about teamwork. They actually talk about it through a master-slave dynamic, which in a lot of things, to me, there was no difference, but in some ways, there were obvious differences because the idea tends to be, the stereotype tends to be in an owner-slave kind of dynamic that it's going to be, put air quotes around this because this means different things to different people, it's going to be stricter. There's going to be a lot less leeway. It's going to be a lot more, I tell you what to do, you do it. And what they show is that you can flip even a master-slave dynamic on its head and make it collaborative. And they talk about how that works through that lens.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things I want to say about the book, just real quick off the top, reading it, it really affirmed what you and I have and the way we work together.
Yes, it was.
And while it does, as you say, you know, it is written in a master-slave perspective because that's what, you know, that's who they are, for one. So they wrote what they know. I was reading it and looking at it through a lens of, you know, dominant, submissive, daddy, baby girl. And it's like, yeah, most of this can be applied to any DS relationship, really.
Especially if you are reframing your expectations or your thinking or trying to flip the script that you were taught about what power exchange is supposed to look like. Because I've not come across any type of dynamic where there wasn't some school of thought of a power exchange dynamic is literally just dominant tells you what to do, submissive does it without question. Anybody who's been doing it for more than 5 minutes knows that that's not universally true, that there are multiple ways to do it. But if you come in completely new and you're, you know, looking at your airbrushed porn or you're reading the fantasies or you're just seeing the memes or whatever, you will absolutely get that perspective for almost any dynamic out there. So yeah, reading this through our own personal lens of knowing that we are nothing like any sort of stereotypical master slave anything like that, just would, no, you would never put us in that box. And still seeing parallels in every other dynamic we've experienced. Yeah, this one is, in my opinion, for anybody who is intrigued by the idea of a collaborative power exchange versus, like they say, they call in the book adversarial, which I thought was a good way to point it out, to differentiate. So what we're going to do is actually, we're not going to rehash the whole book. We're going to kind of talk about the things that stood out to us from this book and just give our opinions and expand on their thoughts versus our thoughts on teamwork and collaboration. Again, the book is called, because I know I speak fast sometimes, Building the Team, Cooperative Power Dynamic Relationships by Raven Kaldera and Joshua Tenpenny. And the links to the books are in the places. Okay, so what you go first. Okay. What stands out to you?
There were a couple things that stood out to me in this. One of the first things, and this is something I've believed in for a long time. I'll read the highlight. Fear is never a motivation for the slave. Best motivations are achievements, excellence in their role, wanting the relationship to go well, and wanting to please their master.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I have often said this, something that made me, even years ago, when I first came into into the lifestyle, hearing some of these doms and masters, I'm going to break you, I'm going to tear you down into nothing, and you'll be less than you ever were. That never sat with me.
It does not appeal.
and while I know there are people who do want that in a DS relationship, I think for the most part they're far and few between.
I also think that it's more on the level of the fantasy. Like, break me down in a scene and then please glue me back together, because I'm probably going to need that. But every day of your life for the rest of your life, no, does not appeal.
It kind of goes back to the old saying, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and that's pretty much what this is saying. When somebody completes a task and you celebrate the achievement, that builds them up. Okay, knowing that they're performing their role well. These are all things that, as a team, even if it's just a team of two people,
right?
It's a team that strengthens the team to grow and do more.
And I also think that you get more out of whatever your ultimate goal is, which in most power exchange relationships is satisfaction and contentment and whatever, when you find what motivates a person. Because when a person is motivated, not always, not in every situation, but in many cases, they become, there's a term, but basically they are self-powered. I mean, that's, they can keep going without a bunch of extra input from the outside because they found their motivation that gets them up in the morning, keeps them going. I know many a time when I've done a thing that did I really feel like doing it? If left to my own devices, would I have rather laid in bed and just, scrolled my phone for 3 hours? Sure. But the internal motivation that I had, either to make you happy, to do something that I find satisfying, to keep the relationship going, is what allows me to do a thing even when I'm not really feeling it. Like, the truth of the matter is, in power exchange, no matter how good the relationship is, every moment of every day, you will not feel like doing something that you agreed to do 6 months or 6 years ago. If it is still important to you to do, if it is still satisfying on some level, it is that, in part, inner motivation that you found that keeps you going through those moments. That is not a perfect way of keeping yourself going. Sometimes there will be outside factors in life that will keep you from doing a thing you want to do. But how many of us have had the experience of, this is a thing I should do. I know I should do it. I know on paper I want to do it. But in this moment, I don't want to do it. Well, what keeps you going anyway? Sometimes it's that there are consequences if you don't do a thing. The negative reinforcement, the negative feedback. Sometimes there's a positive reinforcement factor. There's the knowing that you're going to get praised or knowing that you've pleased a partner. Those are definitely worthy things. But sometimes it's just your own kind of gumption and your own get up and go.
True.
And I think that you can have that motivation, internal motivation to keep going, because you've had all the external stuff. You've had the you catch more flies with honey than vinegar moment.
Yeah.
Your partner's been pleased with you. They've said nice things to you. They've praised you. They've done whatever it is that kind of, makes you feel good. And then that builds that as well. So it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Do you have another one?
Go ahead.
You want me to go? Oh gosh, now I have to find one. I was going to rely on you. So the one of many, there were many highlights. This is a relatively, from my perspective, short read. It's not a long book at all. And so many highlights. This one, the teamwork model relies entirely on the slave understanding the spirit of each rule rather than scrutinizing the letter of the master's law, usually in order to find loopholes and justify unwanted behavior. The slaves who are most likely to do this are usually intelligent, highly verbal people who enjoy arguing and can do it for hours on end. Look, just cross out slave and insert Kayla Lords.
Yeah.
I like that part when you're in a teamwork model. Teamwork and collaboration sometimes means, depending on how you've sorted yourself out, that the exact reading of the rule will not apply to all situations, because nobody can think of every situation where the rule you've created like fits. Like there will be times where there's got to be some judgment from the submissive type to figure out, in this situation, what would my partner actually want that keeps with the spirit of our power exchange? Now, do brats exist? Of course they do. Am I also a person who looks for loopholes? Yes, not because I actually want to get out of doing something, but because it's fun. It's a mental exercise for me.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. It's also fun to see the dawning realization when you're like, I did not think that through, did I?
Mm-hmm.
Also, it makes me feel smart. But at my core, what I want in our power exchange is to do the air quote right thing. I want you to be pleased with me. I want to be the, consummate good girl. I want all of that. So understanding the spirit of a rule, and brats understand the spirit of a rule. They just sometimes don't care. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And also brats are not monolithic. So every brat is not going to disregard a rule just because they found a loophole. I do not call myself a brat. I call myself sassy, and I go back and forth. I would never actually break a rule just because I found the loophole. I just like pointing out that the loophole exists, and I want you to know that I know that the loophole exists, and I'm choosing to ignore the loophole. But I think that, unless you are a person who wants to follow the letter of the law and wants to find the loopholes and wants to brat in every situation, and I'm sure those people out there exist, I think for most people in that teamwork framework are going to, that's the important thing to know. No one person can think of a rule for every single solitary situation. So it means that both of you have to rely on the comprehension skills and some level of understanding and intelligence from the submissive to stay within more like guidelines, guideposts. I mean, there are some rules that are very like strict, like you will do this thing at this time, you will complete this task daily. But then there are some that I'm not even sure we could fully define. Like the rule is I can say anything I want to, I just have to be respectful. Well, what does respectful mean in any given situation, right?
Yeah.
There's another one that I highlighted here where it talks about sometimes having to have a plan in place for the little s in a dynamic to tell the dominant not what they want to hear, but basically what they need to hear. We call that the tough love clause. Yeah. And technically, if our dynamic was such that you don't tell me what to do ever, which we actually don't have that rule, then the tough love clause couldn't have a place. The tough love clause is going, my job is to take care of you. My job is to serve you. I'm a service submissive, and that is a thing you allow me to do. Sometimes in serving you and serving the greater good of a relationship, I got to tell you that you done fucked up, or I got to tell you you really need to go your ass to the doctor, or I got to go, you know what? I don't care that you don't want to take your medicine. This is what you need to do. The how that happens is very much, determined by our power exchange, and that goes back to the speak with respect always, but you don't delineate exactly what that means, because in any given situation that might mean something different, because I can be joking and sassy and you don't find that disrespectful today, but tomorrow I can joke a little too hard, and now we've gone into the realm of disrespect, but you can't create the rule that says you can never joke with me. Like, that's not even, that would not work for us. No, it wouldn't. I don't think that's practical for most people. If you say that there's an element of somebody's personality that they're literally not allowed to do because one time it pissed you off, one, you're squashing somebody's personality. People are going to get upset. People are going to be unhappy. We're going to have repression, and then we're going to have resentment, and then the wheels are going to fall off. But also, it's one of those moments where know the spirit of the law more than the letter of the law. The spirit of the law becomes more important than the letter of the law. So, yeah. What have you got next?
This is kind of a short point, but I think it's one that needs bearing. To the point, each member of the team has to do their part.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? It's just not a matter of the master giving an order to, or a task to the slave to complete. Even the one in charge has a role to play that has to be done. Otherwise it breaks down. And that's something that is important, because I think too much of the fantasy of this, especially for people coming in new, you're watching, whether it's porn or you're reading erotica, the big D barks an order and everybody jumps. And it's not quite that simple.
Right. And even if that's your preferred style, there are going to be times in life where it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
Right.
It's too much. It's not the right anything. Yep. For me, there is an entire section of multiple pages called the blame game.
Yes.
I highlighted multiple parts of this.
Yeah.
So I was talking about the blame game. I think if I'm remembering correctly, because it's now been several weeks since I read this, the summation of that, or let me back up. The premise of that section was on, well, what happens when things go wrong, whether the dom screws up or the sub screws up, who's to blame. And the biggest point of this part of it is, in a teamwork collaborative model, yes, sometimes you need to figure out who screwed up and deal with that. But in general, it's not about being right. I think that my favorite one, was it in here? But maybe it's the first one. Maybe I'm thinking another one. The thing that comes to mind is, it's not about being right. It's about being effective. But,
right.
This is the one that you have done and used with me in the past, because there was a time when if something went wrong or if I screwed up, my first thought was to heap all of the blame on myself, a self-flagellation thing, as they call it, and I'm now an awful person. I'm not an awful person. I'm a human who makes mistakes. So it says, a no-blame model is also excellent for slaves who tend to fall into self-flagellation at any error. The master can just cut them off and say, it doesn't matter whose fault it was. We just need to figure out why it happened, and then we need to figure out what we're going to do so that it doesn't happen again.
Yes. Yeah, because wasting time on pointing blame is basically useless. It accomplishes nothing. And, if you're truly operating as a team, doesn't matter, because it's not something that affected one person. It affected the entire team. And yes, what you need to do is, okay, we got here. What is the best way to correct this and move forward?
And sometimes that correction will come. That's when it comes down to, okay, you did or did not do a thing. You made a mistake somewhere. How do we make sure you don't make this mistake again?
Right.
And this, I think, still goes hand in hand if you want to have a punishment model in your power exchange. We have a punishment model in our power exchange. It's very, very rare, because I'm not trying to do anything wrong. And because we actually default to this first. Punishment is not dealt out every time I screw up. You will immediately go, let's look at the full context of the situation. Did you have a migraine and both of us forgot that coffee pots have to be dealt with at night? Okay, you're not in trouble because you had a migraine. You're not going to get punished because you didn't do a thing while you were sick. That, speaking of my migraines, actually leads to a really good section later in the book. But we're going to look at, okay, what actually went wrong?
Right.
Oh, we didn't talk this through. Oh, this didn't happen. When punishment comes in, those are the times when context is like, you knew what you were supposed to do and you didn't communicate, or you didn't do this. But that's when we do that.
Now, I will also say with this one, I have seen her sick and she's been like, oh, I got to do the coffee pot. And I'm like, no, you ain't got to do nothing. You need to go to bed. And she will argue with me that she needs to do her task. And I'm like, no, you need to listen to me and you need to go directly to bed.
I'm getting better at that. Now I'm like, Daddy, I have a migraine. But there's a coffee pot. And you're like, just go to bed. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And, I admire your tenacity in that for wanting to do your things. But, that is a time when I have made a decision, no, you are not physically up to performing this. You need to take care of yourself so you get better,
And I think that the no blame model also, I think it also allows, I don't know how to say this because, so let me think out loud and we'll hopefully get somewhere together. You and I both believe strongly that no dominant is infallible. You absolutely can make mistakes. And we also believe that dominants have to take responsibilities, not just the responsibility of the relationship or, being the dominant, but also where you're going to screw up, because of course you are. The no blame model, when used in a relatively healthy situation, right? Like, no blame model does not work if one person never takes responsibility for anything, or always blames, the other person for their ineptitude. Like, no. This does not work for that, because there's an accountability and responsibility issue. The no blame model works, I have found, just in general, like in all the kinds of relationships I've had with people that have been the healthiest, when both partners or everybody involved are more than willing to take responsibility for where they screwed up. So a no blame model does not mean to me that a dominant does not accept responsibility for what they could have done better. It just means that we're not going to dwell on what did or did not happen. We're going to acknowledge, could have done that better, and then move forward and go, how do we correct this so it doesn't happen again? It acknowledges that mistakes are made. I think that the one thing that this model leaves out, it doesn't mean it can't happen. It just can't include this within the definition of it, which is that sometimes you did screw up, you the dom, you the sub, whoever, and there might still need to be an apology for that. There might still need to be an ownership of, I fucked that up. But that's not where we're going to spend all of our time. We're going to actually spend our time figuring it out for the future.
And see, with this blame game thing, owning responsibility is something that's very important to me. Always has been. Talked about this in numerous episodes over the years. And trying to form some words here. I know the thought, I'm just trying to get it out. A lot of that comes in how you react when somebody messes up or makes a mistake, which will then make them either more willing to accept responsibility or less. If somebody screwed up and you're like, oh man, you're stupid, that, what were you thinking? You don't approach somebody like that. Okay. You made a mistake. Okay. We need to talk about this. We need to work through and see what we can do so it doesn't happen again.
This was several pages after the initial thing that I read, but it ties in perfectly. It says, in talking about the blame game and a team work approach to fixing
Right.
things. It says, well, what are we going to do about it? And yes, I mean we. Quit thinking about blame and start figuring out how we can prevent this in the future. We're a
Yes.
team, and the team made a mistake, and the team is going to fix it. Now, if I recall, the lens that they were discussing this through, especially with a master-slave relationship, was in the power exchange, if the big D is the one who's in charge and ultimately responsible for all, right?
Right.
And I think that that is a nice fantasy to have, but when you have multiple people involved in anything, there is no one person who is genuinely, truly responsible for everything. But as the leader, if that is your leadership style of, okay, buck stops here, you might have done something that you should not have done, but you are a member of my team and I lead this team, so I am responsible for what you did, which is absolutely a way of thinking about power exchange. And we have absolutely talked about leadership styles and leadership in past episodes as well. Then it makes sense from a Dom perspective in a team framework like this, that, okay, yes, the little S messed up. The little S didn't do something they were supposed to do. The little S misunderstood what I wanted done. Whatever. Maybe the thing that went wrong originated or was conducted by the submissive. But in this kind of framework, the way they talk about it in this book was, yeah, well, me as the Dom, should I have explained it better? Should I have followed up better? It really is a we problem. It can be a real mindfuck to go from thinking of yourself as just a full individual that is just out here, like, you know, raw dogging life on your own, to
Flapping in the breeze, kind of.
to thinking of yourself as part of a team. And especially in power exchange, it's a bit of a mind frame shift. My words are hard today. Sorry. I hope I'm putting them in the right order together. Because it is no longer, well, I screwed up as a submissive, which is what I want to do. I'm going to go, I forgot that. I messed up. And when you come back at me and go, but wait, I knew you had a headache. I knew that you were this. I knew that this happened. I could have handled that better too. What we're both saying when we're both addressing the problem together and talking about what we as individuals did wrong is we're actually saying we messed this up.
Yeah.
And I know somebody who we talked about this last week, recovering perfectionist, who does not like making mistakes. I find it physically painful to make a mistake. It is a very, and I'm the submissive who wants to be the good girl and thinks you know, hung the fucking moon. It is very difficult for me even now to hear you look at a situation where I think I messed up and go, actually, this is what I could have done better. This is where I, you know, whatever. But also as a person who was raised not well, to dwell on where I've screwed up or where things have gone wrong. It is both refreshing and very weird that you, better than I, am able to go, okay, that's the problem. Yes, let's have a quick acknowledgement of where the mess up happened. And now let us move on. We're going to fix it. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. We're going to repair whatever needs, whatever. But we're not actually dwelling on this. We are dealing with it and moving on. And I'm like, wait, you mean you don't have to wallow in your own self-flagellation about how you're a terrible person because you forgot to put the K-cup in the Keurig? Like, I thought there had to be a week of silent treatment over this. That says a lot about my childhood. I need to go back to therapy. What do you mean I don't have to replay this incident in my head for the next 6 months and think to myself that I'm an awful human being because I screwed up this one time and that my entire being and my worthiness of love and affection is tied to that one mistake? I mean, if you are a person, if any of what I just said resonates with you, I'm so sorry. I'll see you at the therapist's office together. And also, this kind of attitude, it is difficult. It is weird because you're like, this isn't what we do. What do you mean we're not going to dwell? But also, if you can get comfortable with it and you can get used to it and you can go, yeah, this works, because it does work. You know, assuming a relatively healthy, happy relationship to begin with. If there are toxic issues coming from one person or both, none of this is going to fucking matter, because it's just not going to work. But if the idea that one person is the all-knowing, all-powerful genie who just issues, wishes and commands, and the other person, my metaphor falls apart when I say genie, but y'all know what I mean. And the other person just, serves, and there's none of this collaboration. If that doesn't work for you, I think some of this is going to resonate, even if it's really hard, even if you are a person who struggles with, what do you mean we can just let an oopsie go and fix it and move forward with our lives?
Right. And see, that kind of falls into another point that I have here, where it says, it is important not only to include the slave in the brainstorming process, but to make them feel like their input is desired and taken into account.
You get a lot more out of me when I feel like I'm listened to.
Right.
You get a lot less out of me if I feel like my opinion has no merit and no place in the conversation.
Absolutely.
It is much easier to buy into whatever the rule is, whatever the task is, whatever the change is, whatever the direction is, when I've had my say. And we've talked about that before, and might have been the teamwork episode, might be other episodes. When I feel heard and listened to, even if you don't take my advice, even if we don't go that direction, I at least know I said what I needed to say, and it was heard with respect. And there is a difference in somebody letting you say something and it clearly going over their head and they're not taking it in at all, versus, okay, I want to hear your opinion. Tell me what you know. Let me think about this. Let me go away. And because, one, my experience with you tends to be, you almost never go, no, we're not doing any of that at all. You will actually take the parts of a suggestion I have that you really like or that you think will fit, and we might reject the rest. That is hard as a person who likes to get her way. I am a contradiction, okay? I understand. I want to be the total good girl who makes you perfectly happy. Also, I want to have my own fucking way, okay? I contain multitudes. And to go from being a highly independent human being who's out here like surviving on her own to being in a relationship where I basically say, yeah, sure, your word can be law. Can I help write the law? It was a shift for me, but I think the part of the reason I was able to make that shift is because you've always made me feel heard. I never feel silenced. I never feel like my opinion does not matter or count. I have never watched you take what I would consider good advice and toss it because you're the dom and you know everything and what you say goes. Like that sort of arrogance and hubris, like you've never brought that energy, thank God. Couldn't deal with it if you did. You'll try it as a joke every once in a while. I'm like, oh, that's an active turnoff, okay? And I do think that, especially if you've had major parts of your life where you are not listened to, you know what it feels like when somebody's really hearing you, even if they still disagree. Part of our power exchange, I've not had to learn how to have people disagree with me. That's something, we all experience at very early ages throughout our life. But I had to learn how to hear somebody disagree with me respectfully. And that was new. Like, I had been disagreed with, but usually I had been shoved to the side. I'd been disregarded. Whether it was sexism, whether it was parent to child, where you're being raised by a parent at least, who was like, oh, well, you're a child, you know nothing, your opinion counts for nothing. All that dismissive stuff. It was an adjustment period to learn how to be listened to. Know that I was genuinely being listened to, even if my suggestions were not. Because prior to this kind of relationship, the way I felt valued was if you agreed with me and let's do what I want to do. Which, the thing about being submissive for me, I know this is not always true for everybody, is that I don't want it to always be what I want. Yes, I always want to do what I want to do. Okay, I'm a baby girl. But ultimately, in the power exchange, I want you to decide what we're going to do. I want you to be in charge. And
it can't be one-sided, or it's not going to.
No, and if it's always what I want, then am I really being the submissive? Probably not. Yeah. And so, yes, I want what I want, but learning how to have that collaboration and not get what I want, but still feel valued in the process, mind blowing. Mind blowing. So within that section, I would say this was a very meaningful section to us.
Mm-hmm.
There were two sections that I'm trying to decide. I don't know if we want to do. I'm going to read it all. And it's kind of a long quote. It talks about hope. Okay. So I got this in two different sections. We're going to mush them together. So just as it is the master's job to set the long-term goals, it is also their job to sustain hope in the achievement of those long-term goals and to model that hope and belief for the slave to follow. If the goals do turn out to be less than achievable, the master's job is not to give up, but to choose alternate goals that actually are achievable. Actively making a different choice is not the same as losing hope and giving up. It's taking action in the face of new information. However, if the master slumps into hopelessness and apathy, the slave will generally follow. That is true. Or at least go into a tailspin of panic. That is also true. Hope is also not the same thing as optimism. Optimism is a day-to-day attitude. Hope is a long-term attitude. A master can be pessimistic on a daily basis, yet still hold out hope for the long-term goals. In fact, it's often the slave's job to provide short-term optimism if they are any good at it. Masters need to have a strong belief in their own goals and the hope necessary to keep struggling in the face of difficulty. This blew my mind because part of me is like, as a person who is both hopeful and optimistic, I'm like, I don't need nobody else to be hopeful. I got this. I'm going to be hopeful. But you absolutely are the one who can keep hope going even when when you do hit pessimism. Like you are not as optimistic as I am. You are actually a lot more skeptical than I am. I have to remind myself to ask questions and to not see everything through rose-colored glasses. Yeah. You're not a total pessimist. You are more optimistic than some people I know, but not as optimistic as I am. Part of me struggled a little bit with this, but I also get it as the master or the dominant being the keeper of the long-term goals. Look, I am a goal-oriented person, and I got one of those scrolls of paper that would like roll out a door. It's so fucking long with goals. It just so happens that my long-term goals align with your long-term goals. This might be that one little bit about the long-term goals might be the one place where I go, well, that's definitely not a universal, because you decide if our long-term goals are worth it, but I'm usually the one going, here, I got about 85 goals. Will you consider them and tell me which one we're going to go for?
True.
But I would reinterpret that part to go to change it a bit to say maybe that as the dominant, you are in charge and you are the keeper of the path we're taking, the direction, where we're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. What that looks like, that in our relationship at least, that's definitely coming from me. I've got ideas. Obviously, when you have ideas, of course we take those on, we talk about them. But if we're gonna like do a scale measurement of where the long-term goal ideas are coming from, I'm the factory for that. But you are the keeper of that. You are the one that will certainly keep us on course if, and this is what I really liked about this passage, if it still makes sense to be on that path.
True.
You know, I think the idea of going that we are not achieving that goal and trying to get there is actually wrecking things and harming things. And this is actually not good. And okay, let's switch goals, and not considering that a failure, but saying, okay, the long-term goal is a happy, healthy power exchange relationship. The path we're taking to get there, we need to try a new path. Like, here's a fork on the road. Let's go this way instead. And not internalizing that as a failure. That's a skill not a lot of people have. I myself have struggled with that. What do you mean this goal I've been actively working towards for however long? I'm definitely not achieving it. Oh, if I stop working towards that goal and start working towards something else, that's not a moral failing of some sort.
And I think there is a big difference, and people have a hard time reckoning this. There is a huge difference between giving up and knowing when it is time to truly give up on something.
Right, to do something different.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, if as a dominant, you're the head of that relationship, you're steering things along, you're assuming the responsibility, of it all, then yes, that decision lies with you. Look, we've been trying this. It is not working. In a, put air quotes on this word, stricter power exchange, like as is relayed in this book of master slave, the slave is, the idea being the slave will give their input if necessary, but mostly go, okay, over here in this Danny John baby girl thing, we're going to get to me going, okay, if that, that's what you say we need to do. Okay. But it's not going to be quick or easy. We're going to have to talk about it because I'm going to have thoughts and I'm going to need to process. I'm going to need to process with you, listening to me verbally process. And it might be a 30-minute conversation. It might be a month before I can come around to, yes, you were right. We'll go in this new direction. I think that's where some of the differences lie with different relationships and different dynamics, because in maybe a master slave, there's less of a chance of that. But again, it still falls back on feeling heard,
right?
Collaborating, and knowing that we're going to get to this point. Me at after all these years, I'm going to come around, or you're going to be presented with information that you're willing to consider and go, okay, maybe there's a third way. Right. Or maybe there's a reason to give more time for this. And that's the power of that, of knowing that I have that ability to speak up and let you know what I think, but also that I have the ability to not resist your will as the dominant, but to have the freedom to go, I've got to process this because my initial reaction is no, 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 but not in a disrespectful way, not in a way that takes us out of our power exchange, but just in a way that's like, this is how I work through stuff, and you respect that. And you're like, I'm going to let you be who you are within the bounds of what we've agreed to within our power exchange, but eventually this train is moving in this direction. Get on board. Come on, let's go. Yep. And that, I think, is yet, another reason 1,355,000 why collaboration works best. Right. I could not be in a power exchange where I didn't feel like I had a voice. It just, I want to do what you want to do, but I want to do what you want to do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay, so have you got another one?
Nope, not in that.
No, just in general.
Oh, just in general?
Yeah.
Going in from here, I moved into the behavior modification part 3 of the book. And in all honesty, I really didn't highlight a whole lot in here.
Yeah.
Mainly to the effect, we have talked about this in the past. And a lot of what is in here, as I'm reading it, I'm just kind of, this is all stuff we've, what we've talked about. We've touched on a lot of this part of it. So, I didn't really go into a whole lot in this.
I highlighted one thing, and I don't think there's a lot of discussion to be had, because I'm like, I think this is, but I'll read it just as a point. It says, behavior modification should be seen by both parties as being useful, and both parties should be equally committed to the idea. It's not enough for the master to believe that it's worthwhile. The slave, too, has to be on board with it. All types of training should be seen by the slave as useful, even when they are difficult. A slave who doesn't like the idea of becoming someone who is more effective at their position and more pleasing to their master may lack commitment to the relationship, or may have deep damage to their self-esteem and their ability to believe and change for the better, especially for themselves. I think that just sums up, if behavior modification can look like a lot of things. It can look like submissive training. It can look like a very specific thing that you want to do within your power exchange that would never work outside of any other part of life. It could be for something that's very much in a kink scene kind of way. It can be all kinds of things. Like you want somebody to do something different than they would normally do it, or that they have previously learned to do it. We tend to talk about it more as a training kind of thing. Yeah. And I think the ultimate crux of it here is both folks got to be on board with it.
Absolutely. I mean, you can lead your horse to water, but if that horse doesn't want to drink, ain't nothing going to make that horse drink, no matter how badly you want it to. When it comes to something like behavior modification, all parties have to be on board. If you're trying to force somebody to do something they don't want to do, it's going to fail miserably, and it's going to make everybody miserable.
Yeah, and the idea that the submissive should want to do it specifically because their dominant wants it. Sometimes that'll work, at least short term, but that's not a long-term solution.
No.
Especially if we're actively talking about changing, either a single major thing about yourself or lots of little things or any combination of the two. That's not a long-term plan at all. The next section, I did not highlight a lot, but I highlighted several things. This is where I think I mentioned this earlier. I don't know how much you've got. Being right versus being effective. There's a whole section on this. And it's funny. I think I can understand them focusing on this when talking about master-slave dynamics, because that type of dominant, typically, there are always exceptions to this, typically they are my word is law kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But if you cannot admit that sometimes your law is wrong or your word was wrong, then we're going to have some issues. I'll just go down a couple of quick, because I did some really quick ones. First of all, teamwork is behavior modification is a line. I was like, that's right. That is very true. It's better to be effective than to be right. I have a couple of times, this is a slight differentiation of things I've said to you. Actually, I've said this in terms of parenting, not in our relationship.
True.
Where I said, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right?
Yeah, you have.
Sometimes you wanted to be right and fuck happiness. A few times you went, I would rather be happy. Yeah. Okay, then we don't need to be technically correct. But it's also true. Do you want to be effective in your power exchange, in your relationship, in the goals you're trying to achieve? Or do you want to be the one who was correct about that thing that the other person said we shouldn't do, couldn't do, whatever. This one really there's a lot here, but I'm going to stop here. This one really resonated. A master's authority is not based on them being flawless. It's based on that slave deciding that this master's judgment is good enough overall to be worth following.
Yes. That was something that I had highlighted myself that strongly resonated with me. And there's the that's the whole key to it all. You have to make yourself worthy of being followed.
And I know worthiness is going to be subjective. Sure. Some other dom out there is absolutely worthy of their submissive's submission. And I would be like, oh, no, not touching that with a 10-foot pole. And that's okay. Your way of dominating, your way of expressing yourself in power exchange, of moving through this world, will not resonate with everybody who is submissive. And that is okay. It's not about, are you, capital G good in terms of what the outside world looking in would think. It's about how we are relating to one another and what you've done on an individual level that gives me the comfort of going, yeah, this person's worthy of submitting to. And everybody will have their own criteria. Everybody will have their own way of judging it. Sometimes it won't be something that you can clearly, enunciate's not the word I want, but it's the only one that's coming to mind. Words are hard today. But it won't be the one that you can easily define. It might be a feeling or a vibe. I can tell you some of what you've done over the years. There's what you did in the beginning, and then there's what you've done over the years that reinforces what I thought in the beginning. It's, admitting when you're wrong. It's listening to me, even when I know you disagree with me. It's doing your best, even though sometimes it doesn't work out, to stay calm in the heat of the moment. It's taking my concerns, my fears, my whatevers seriously, even when you are like, I don't know what the problem is here. She's a crazy lady, but she's my crazy lady, so okay.
I signed up for the crazy, so.
I get that all the anxieties I carry around with me and I have to function through daily, most of them don't make any fucking sense to you. You're like, why are you scared of your own phone? Just because it's ringing? You're like, what? But you don't have to have experienced something. you don't have to understand something to respect the fact that I experience it and I understand the world that way. Doesn't mean you're perfect. Does he get frustrated when you're like, this could have been resolved with a 30-second phone call, but you spent 4 hours online trying to not make that 30-second phone call.
I do get frustrated.
He gets frustrated. But you accept those things about me. If you could not have accepted those things about me, we could not be in a relationship. Right. But also you'll tell me the hard stuff. You'll tell me stuff I don't want to hear. And most of the time you'll tell me in such a way that it's less difficult to hear. Like, I don't want to hear that I'm being bratty. I don't want to hear that you don't want to do this thing I want to do. I don't want to hear that you don't like my brilliant idea of how we're going to conquer the world. Like, I don't want to hear that. But it goes back to, in that case, I know I was heard. I know you took that in, processed it through your more healthy brain, and came out with a different solution, or went, I see what you're saying. I understand it. I can even tell it back to you. But we're going to reject it, and here's why. You've always treated me like a fully functioning, intelligent adult human being, and not like, have you treated me like an object when it's kinky and sexy? Of course. I like that about you. But in the relationship, it's not your way or the highway. It's not you are the king of all, right. It has always been an us thing. Correct. And ultimately, you said this from the very, very beginning when we were still like in the friend stage of, I just want you to be happy. Yeah. And the same is true. I just want you to be happy. And I think that is not a fix for every relationship issue. I can't be happy. I'm a grumpy polar bear, and that's all there is to it. I know how to make you happy. That is not appropriate for YouTube. Or the podcast, maybe, but not for YouTube. But I've always been a member of this team. Like, you've always had that team aspect, that collaborative aspect, and your happiness is as important to me as my happiness is to you, and that's always been communicated. So can I follow you even when I'm like, what the fuck is this man doing? This is not the decision I would make. I see 85 other ways of doing this, but you've earned the right. You've earned the right. You earned it in the beginning, and then you kept earning it every day. And I have learned with you, which was something you've had a very hard time working on in the past. You're doing better on it now. When I'm doing something and you'd be like, oh no, you should be doing it this way. But baby girl, all roads lead to Rome. Look, I know my way works. I know my way works. I'm just saying. Okay. Do you have any others? No. That you because there's one section, I'm actually bypassing several highlights. There's one section I absolutely want to get to, and it's towards the end, and it's where I had the most highlights. I will not read all of these highlights, y'all. But it is, the way they titled the section is called When Someone Has an Impairment. This could be mental, this could be physical, this could be emotional, whatever. Yeah. So there is incorrectly a thinking that if one or both partners, especially in power exchange, have some sort of, as they say, impairment, whether it's a disability or something else, that they cannot make a good submissive. They cannot make a good dominant. This is bullshit. We have said this is bullshit. We will keep saying this is bullshit. In power exchange, it's going to look like a lot of different ways, the way you navigate that. In previous episodes where we've talked about my mental health, we've talked about, very specifically, 99.9% of the time, you cannot dom me out of anxiety. If I'm in that spiral, if that's where my head is at, there's no big D voice on the planet I'm going to fucking listen to. It's not going to work. We did try that early on, and it was an unmitigated disaster. Yeah. Dude, bad idea. And sometimes you got to try it until you know. Right. But it doesn't mean, and let me back up. See, words are hard. The case they make in this book, and I agree with, and would not have put it this eloquently, I guess, is that actually I think the teamwork method is more important in power exchange if somebody has a chronic condition or issue that they have to deal with. How that looks will depend on which side of the slash you're on. So, some words of wisdom. One, part of taking responsibility for one's part in the relationship is taking responsibility for one's physical and mental glitches. I like that, glitches.
Yeah.
Like, you can't fix it. You're living with this condition, and we've talked about this before, but you have to own it to the best of your ability and take care of yourself in the way that you have access to take care of yourself. Is that medication? Right. Is that therapy? Is that, what is that? You need to do it, right? Then they say, whether some of these impairments can eventually be overcome is irrelevant to the present moment. They must be compensated for rather than be denied while they still exist. This includes masters as well as slaves being realistic about their problems and building compensatory mechanisms into the team protocol for those as well. It's, the rule in our relationship is I do a certain set of tasks every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the reality is that I get migraines minimum of once a month, bad cycle maybe 2 or 3 times a month. I have taught myself, I don't think this is something to be proud of, but I know a lot of people do this. I know how to work through a lot of pain. Have been doing it my whole life. Didn't know I had migraines for years because I was like, I'm not puking, so clearly I'm fine. It's just a bad headache. But there comes a point even I go, can't do it, won't do it.
Right.
The rule can't be that I have to do this set of tasks every day without fail, no matter what happens, especially if we know that I get migraines, and I might not know when I'm going to get a migraine. Most of the time I don't. They just kind of appear. So we've built in and we've talked about this before. I did not think about it as our teamwork collaboration kind of thing of my job is to tell you how I'm feeling.
Correct.
My job is not to power through and grit my teeth and never admit that I don't feel good. Because one, that serves no fucking body.
Right.
It's poor communication. But 2, if I don't tell you, hi, we're in Migraine City today, you will have an expectation of what you think I'm supposed to do.
That's right.
But if you know I have a migraine, you're not going to expect me to get these things done. You're going to step in and do them for me. We're going to be more lenient. I might have to go, hey, there's that thing I said I would do today. I literally cannot.
Right.
It fits in all different parts of Power Exchange to communicate your health issues or communicate how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. But that is the expectation that I have to know is there, that I have to say something. And how did we come to this point? Not because we sprung from the ground just knowing this shit. It was because there were too many times where I didn't say something, and then you were like, if I had known you weren't feeling well, if I had known this was going on, we would have done something different. You have to tell me these things.
So, and that kind of leads me to something that I want to say about teamwork just in general. When someone says teamwork, you have this, in this case, a DS relationship, 2 people kind of going side by side, doing their thing and working as a team. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It is not always like that. There are times in our DS, in our relationship in general, when I have to carry you.
Mm-hmm. And
there are times in our relationship when you have had to carry me.
And you know what's funny? And I think this is true on either side of the slash because it just depends on what you've been through and how you look at life. When I'm carrying you, I'm serving. This is it's not easy, but it's like, of course, this is what I'm here for. This is what I do.
Yeah.
We talked a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the stressors that we've gone through that I have burned out a little bit. I'm on the verge of it, and it's harder to serve in those moments. But it's like it's my calling, it's my purpose. I get behind it. And I struggle on the other side with you taking care of me and you carrying me but I serve, I take care of, except the way you view dominance is, and your dominance with me is that you do take care of me.
Right.
Well, it's not always leading and spouting orders. Sometimes it's, I'll guide you. I'll be the one. I'll get us across the finish line, as a poor metaphor.
And it's like that no matter how you model your relationship, whether you're 2 people, 3 people, or whatever. There is going to come a point where one is going to have to carry the other in some way, and that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if the idea of that, freaks you out or feels completely wrong and foreign, and you're like, no, that can never be allowed, I'm going to say you're not ready for a long-term relationship with any other human being, regardless of your dynamic, because that's the nature of being in relationships with people. Yeah. Hell, it's, being in a relationship with, being a dog owner, having fur babies. Yeah. Yes, they provide us with countless joy, but also sometimes my job is to force a pill down their throat, right?
Right. Yeah.
and they can't fill me with joy because I'm cleaning up their shit off the floor, right? Yeah. Like, if we can do it for, there's no interaction with another being where it will always be everything you want and you don't have to give of yourself. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
No.
What the give and take of it, what the carrying the load of it looks like is highly unique to all of us. It depends on our relationships, depends on how we set those up, depends on what the other person needs. But it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I want to end with this because this final longer quote from the book, it's in the when someone has an impairment section, but I really think it is kind of encapsulates how your dominance over me has evolved over the years, and I think it sort of encapsulates some of the comfort and potential beauty of a long-term relationship when you're together long enough for this to happen. So remember, the context here is we're talking about there's an impairment of some sort. There's a disability or a chronic condition. One way to handle things is to get the slave colluding on getting the master to a point of skill with regard to the situation. The master can say, I intend to make myself such an expert on you and your problems that I know them better than you do and will be at least as effective in making decisions on them as you are, and hopefully more so. And you're going to help me to become that expert in any way that we can figure out. It then becomes a team project with everyone on board, with the eventual goal of the slave falling comfortably into that place of trust because they helped it happen. So a couple things. Context for this. They were talking about when somebody has a disability or a chronic condition, you as the little s, the dominant cannot automatically come in and just decide what that person needs to do because they don't know their body. They don't necessarily know their needs. Those things have to be communicated to. And sometimes that means that your DS takes a bit of a back seat while a person goes through what they need to go through to get back to whatever the baseline typically is, or to find their new baseline or whatever. Because recovery is not usually, like in this case, we're not talking about recovery. We're talking about just trying to get back to whatever our normal is. And so in this case, within this book where they're talking about master-slave dynamics and being the type of master who's like, I hate the idea of the slave telling me what's supposed to happen. One, this was the reminder that sometimes you have to let them because they're going to know better than you do. But two, then it's like, okay, I'm going to learn about this so well. I'm going to learn about you so well that you don't have to do that. I'll know what the options are and you will help me know you that well. But what I like about this quote is not just in that context of disability and chronic illness and stuff, but in our relationship, there are times when it feels like you know me better than I do.
Mm-hmm. And vice versa.
Yes. And that is just, there's a lot of things to that. There's the fact that we've been together for so long. There's primarily our communication habits, but also our powers of observation. We pay attention to one another and we take in that information and we store it away for future use. But in this case, this kind of encapsulates how any kind of power exchange dynamic can work with a team or collaborative framework, because you as the dominant can still have as much control as your submissive will consent to allow you, of course, but you can have a lot of control in a relationship, even with this, with it being built upon teamwork, because you take the time, one, to get to know your partner so well, you know what works for them, and your partner is helping you do that, whether that's as an act of service or just as an act of submission. And then it ties into long-term goals. If the long-term goal is for you to understand, let's say, my anxiety, so well that you know what the effective solutions are and can suggest them, or we can, you know what to go to because you've learned from me and I've shared that information with you and you have been observant and we have communicated and we've built that trust, then you can have sort of this total power exchange and still collaborate with one another. And that can be through impairment. That can be just through day-to-day life. That can be through parenting. Like, okay, I know that my partner handles dealing with sick kids this way, deals with whiny kids this way, deals with tired kids. I know what those options are. I know what that looks like. So I know what to tell them that they're supposed to do. I know how to handle this situation, air quote, for them as their dominant, because I have taken it upon myself to learn it so that I can do it. And none of that's a quick thing. That's a time thing. Because it's not going to happen overnight. You are not going to decide today that you want to learn everything you can about this thing about your partner so you can make those decisions for them, assuming they consent, tomorrow. Like, we're talking
I'm
years.
still learning.
It doesn't help that I'm a person who will claim that I hate change and then on a semi-regular basis change everything.
I want to change everything up.
Right, including how I handle things. Partly because I am also that person who's like, oh, did I learn something new? Did I learn a new method? Did I learn a new way? Did I learn a new this? Okay, well, let's implement that. And I'll take on what I learned. Yeah. So good luck keeping up with that. But also I think that's a good reminder that you can want to do that. You can want to learn everything there is to know about this thing your partner deals with and the best courses of action for them so that you can decide what needs to happen. And it will be an ongoing lifelong challenge. You may never learn everything. You just learn enough to where you can actually use in this case we're talking about, you can use your dominance effectively, even in those moments where at a previous point in the relationship, the DS actually had to take a step back.
Yeah.
I would say that I use my submission that way when we came up with the tough love clause, where if I saw that you need to go to a doctor, you need to take some medicine, you were fighting taking care of yourself, I could step in and firmly tell you what you needed to do or make on some level decisions for you. Right. We actually built that in so that I could learn enough about what your needs are, your health needs are, that if you would not do what you needed to do, I could do what you needed to be done for you, and call that service, and it is service, without upsetting the delicate balance of power exchange.
Right.
When we did that, what we knew about each other's health was neither of us ever went to a doctor, but this one could be actively bleeding, falling down, body parts falling off, and he'd be like, I'll just rub some dirt in it. And so we needed to make that rule. We did not, at that time, I did not have mental health diagnoses. I did not know I was getting migraines. I did not know a lot about myself because I just didn't go to a doctor. That was the easy way to not have to worry about anything. And so now we're years into our relationship and you were playing catch up to a certain degree, whereas we built this on my part into our relationship early on.
Yep.
So, there's a lot for such a short read. There's a lot.
There's a lot in there, yes.
And yes, it's written through a master-slave lens, but I think
the general gist of it, the meat and potatoes of it can be applied,
especially if you have previously had dynamics where it was, I put air quotes on this word, strict, right? Like high protocols, high expectations. You don't want to hear sass. You don't want to hear back talk. You're not here for the partner finding loopholes. Like you've got that kind of mindset. But you want a more collaborative feel. I think even if you don't use the terms or have the dynamic of a master slave, I think you might even relate to that better. If you are more like JB and myself, where it's very loosey-goosey, and you're like, but I can't always tell that you're submissive at all upon observation. I think there's still plenty there. I think for me, what it does is it validates our ideas on teamwork and our conversation from 2019. The book definitely predates our epitomes on... Epitome? No, not epitome. What's the word? There's a word and I can't think of it. It's when you have a sudden idea. A sudden realization. Those.
Epiphany.
Oh my God. Words are so hard. It predates us. The book came out in 2013. As a reminder, if you're interested in the book, links are in the places, both on Amazon and non-Amazon.
It is a good book. It's well worth the read. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. It is a short read, but oh my gosh, there is a lot in a little.
Yeah, they are the opposite of us. They said a lot with a few words. The title, as a reminder, is called Building the Team, Cooperative Power Dynamic Relationships by Raven Kaldera and Joshua Tenpenny. So yeah, that's, and then the live chat's like, it's epiphany. Thank you. I know poor podcast listeners.
Light bulb.
Podcast listeners were yelling at their phone or wherever you're listening. Sorry, y'all. It's been a rough day. So that is our conversation on that. Like I said, if you are interested in our original thoughts before we ever read this on teamwork and how we see it in our relationship, it's probably more eloquent in that one. Link to that is in the places as well. It's an episode from 2019. And I guess we'll do a bonus section now, and where I will be no more, hopefully not less, articulate than I am right now.
All right. So are we good?
I don't know. It's not for me to say.
Okay.
Keep it kinky, y'all. And we'll see you next week. Dottie.
Yes, baby girl.
Can I talk to the crickets?
You've been doing that for an hour and 17 minutes. What do you need?
No, I've been talking to you for an hour and 17 minutes.
Okay.
And you've been talking back. That will not stop randos on the internet from all caps yelling in comments for me to shut up and just let you talk. Yes, that happens. But, you you did have, stuff to say.
Yeah.
And you do.
Every once in a while I do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am the quiet one.
It's why we work. Because look, when I get quiet, that's when you know to go, is everything okay? Like, are you doing okay? It's quiet in here.
And when I do speak,
then that's when you know, oh shit, is he
better
okay?
pay attention.
We work, okay?
Right.
We don't have to make sense to anybody else. By the way, may I talk to the cricket? Oh, you thought I had not...
you distracted there for a bit.
No,
huh?
I've been holding that thought in my head going, remember to come back to that. Okay. But I had to let this play out.
Go ahead. You can talk to the cricket.
Thank you, Daddy. I got nothing to say. I just wanted the permission. The cats are fine. The dog is fine. The kids are home from school for the summer. We had a bit of family potential drama over the weekend that fizzled out. Not because the drama went away, but because the people pleasing in me is genetic. My mother is a consummate people pleaser as well, and sometimes I think that is to her own detriment. But so I got nothing. What have you got?
I'm moseying along.
Yeah, we're really boring right now. I was saying this during the butt rub portion of the live stream. Sorry, podcast listeners, you missed that part. If you ever want to hear the butt rub, you can just watch the video just for the first 10 minutes. Anyway, I've been in a really weird headspace about what we do with the podcast and the videos with Loving BDSM. Not that I don't want to do it. I don't want to make anybody think that. But I have not come back from the extended unplanned break with bells on like I thought I would. I thought I'd be super eager and chomping at the bit and let's go and do this, and actually I've been I do think it means that we need to tweak some things and make some changes. I think I'm in that cycle of, we've been doing it like this for so long.
Time to shake things up a little bit.
Time to shake things up.
Yeah,
I have some ideas we haven't talked to them about, with you about.
Yeah, and I've had a few thoughts about things too. And
Yeah.
you know,
So.
I'm still somewhat in a strange place. I mean, it's funny, when I came home, I pretty much parked myself on the sofa and just binged shows, and now I've moved away from that. I haven't sat on the sofa in front of the TV other than family movie night for a while, and I'm just kind of doing stuff. I have a lot of things going on in my head, because I still have so much going on. There has been dealings with life insurance companies, now probate attorneys, and it's fun stuff.
Well, and
Note sarcasm, please.
And the funeral service for your mom happened 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Thereabouts?
Yeah.
And because of some stuff that happened that we won't go into, am I saying the word right? The internment of her urn?
Had to be postponed.
Had to be postponed.
Half hour before the service.
Found out it was postponed.
Yeah.
It has been rescheduled for June 13th. So, I don't, personally, and this is a personal thing, everybody will see this differently, I don't think that funerals, funeral services, celebrations of life, things like that, are automatically and always closure. But I do think that they can sort of serve as the ending of a specific chapter of a situation.
Right.
They give you something to move forward from. And because of things that went down, your ending of that particular chapter has been delayed. It's been stretched out over a month at this point.
It's kind of been hung, some aspects of it have been hung in limbo, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, because you always, had the service, had the moment, had the time with friends and family, as was appropriate, as worked for what y'all wanted to do.
Right.
But didn't get to go, okay, that is done now. There was still this moment hanging that you knew you had to come back to.
Right.
And even if it's in a slightly lesser way or to a lesser degree, put yourself back in the headspace of, this is what we're dealing with today.
Right.
In terms of,
Yeah.
death of a loved one.
Yep.
So that, I'm part of me's been I would not, can't expect somebody to, oh, there goes my stomach growling. Can't expect somebody to sort of turn a switch or go back to being whatever after something like this. But in my mind, I haven't been expecting forward movement. And in my mind, I kind of said, I'm going to wait till the services are complete when that entire process is done. Because it's not closure in my mind, but it is now you go to a next step of these things kind of deal. And you haven't had that opportunity yet.
No.
So.
But, yeah, I'm just kind of moving forward.
Yep.
Doing what I can.
You have laughed more and been silly more in probably the past week than you had been before.
I'm
nice.
starting to sleep better, which I'm very grateful for. Oh my gosh!
Ironic, because apparently we switched positions. I'm starting to sleep worse. I don't have a reason for it. Like you have a known here's my reason. I don't have that, but we're trading.
Yeah.
Yay.
So I'm just So I mean, it's kind of a boring transition at the moment for us, but
boring is okay.
Yeah, sometimes
it's nice to
boring
just
is good.
sit quietly for a minute.
Not have any not have any anything chaotic going on.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's okay to just
breathe.
Just breathe. Even though after so many weeks and months, really the past year, 365 days essentially has been marked with a lot of stuff going on. It feels a little strange to just sit quietly and be a little bit bored. It's June 1st, day of the stream, day that we're recording. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride, yeah.
Sure, we look like a straight couple. We're not. But even if we were straight, you could still say Happy Pride. I will never, give myself the title of a good ally. That is for the people I'm trying to ally myself with to decide. But, just a reminder, the first Pride was a riot. And looking at the landscape of the legal stuff, at least in the U.S., I feel like the next Pride needs to be a riot? I don't know.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And once again, do we have anything special planned for the Kinkery or the Loving BDSM Etsy shop for Pride? No, because I love rainbow-themed everything. I want to do all kinds of stuff and sets and whatever in the different Pride flag colors, because there are tons of Pride flags. Do I ever think of those things and remember them prior to June 1st? No, I don't. No, I don't.
Well, for me doing anything, that would have been out the window this year now anyway, because...
Yeah. You do not have time to prepare.
The time to prepare for it is...
I think you can put rainbow-colored shit out any time of the fucking year.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to.
That's true.
I don't ever want us to be seen as folks who are capitalizing on Pride Month. Like, we just put out a rainbow-colored thing on June 1st, and July 1st it will disappear from the shelves. Like, fuck that shit. So.
I know.
We still, I know why. I know two reasons why. We do yard flags like many people do in the burbs. We do not have a pride flag. And there are two reasons for that. Not because we don't want one. One, going into a local store to find one. not
around
here.
Yeah.
I just need to get online and order one, and I have not. But two, when I think about, okay, let me go online and order, I then also immediately think of where we live. And I'm like, oh, shit, am I going to be causing problems for the kids? Are we going to find something on our front lawn that we do not want? Might still do it anyway, but not until we get the motion sensor lights working
or a camera. Yeah.
Because people are stupid.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Look, people don't think of Florida as the South. That's because you spend too much time in Orlando and Miami. Okay? It's the deep South in a good portion of the state. There's a reason our entire government is fucking Republican. Okay? It's conservative here. It's South in some ways.
Yeah.
It's country in some other ways. It's redneck in some ways. Like, That's not always a bad thing. I have met some rednecks who will shock the shit out of you. My favorite was seeing this massive ass pickup truck with a Black Lives Matter flag flying from it. I was like, thank you for busting stereotypes. But also, I know where I live.
I mean,
I know what this place is.
I grew up in country, in a small rural area, and you get the right country folk. I mean, there ain't nobody better to have your back. They will look out for you. Any way they can, and there are others that, I mean, it's just like life. There's all walks.
Yeah.
So,
but don't think that Florida is some even purple haven.
Yeah.
No. Mr. Spock put it best in the live chat, because I've heard this too. It goes, the further north you go in Florida, the further south you get.
Yeah.
I lived in the Panhandle for many, many years, and there are some aspects of it that were beautiful, and it was a great place to live in some ways. If you were the right type of person, cis, white, and at least appearing straight. People could be very, very kind. But that part of Florida is also called the Redneck Riviera. It's also known as Lower Alabama. Floridians in that area don't like it being called that. And no shade to Alabama. I lived in Alabama for 4 years of my life as well. As well as Mississippi for 10. Okay, like I'm Southern and it's fine. It's not an insult, but yeah. There's a reason why if you are a Republican running for state or national federal office, there are two places you go in Florida before you go anywhere else. Before you go to the Panhandle area, Pensacola area, Destin, as well as kind of in the center, and you go to Central Florida, which is where we live, to the Villages. Now, Villages is not that far from, Orlando. It's not that far from, the air quote bluer spots, the less conservative spots. But there's a reason why if you're if you're conservative, you go those places first. And some of the mindset that the Deep South is known for live in those places. So, for the person who's going to come after me and be like, you just don't like conservatives. Lord, half the people I love are conservative. So don't even come at me with that either.
Yeah, no.
So
there's, and in some aspects, it some of it with the folk around here, it has nothing to do with conservative or liberal leaning. It's just
it's just the place
just
and the mindset
place.
and the things that have been allowed to flourish.
Yep.
And the ways of thinking.
So. Yeah, that was a little bit of a culture shock coming here from Tampa Bay.
Weirdly, Tampa Bay was the culture shock. Tampa Bay is a
for you when you
right.
Because
I was I was raised primarily about 45 minutes north of where we live now, in the middle of the literal woods. When I was 15, we moved to South Mississippi. When I went to college in Alabama. After I got out of college, a few years after college, I moved back to Florida and I went to the Panhandle, but spent all my free time back in South Mississippi because that's where my mom was. Then finally, 2014, I got to move down to the Tampa Bay area, and for 5 years I was like, oh, it is neither a super metropolitan urban area or a completely rural country area. It is a mix, and you can drive 20 minutes either direction and you're gonna hit different all of it. And also you could walk into like a Starbucks, and this table they're talking liberal politics, and that table they're talking conservative politics, and it's like a sea of different types of people in one place. It's not homogenous, right? And I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is amazing. And then we came to where we live now, and I'm like, oh, this is like going home. I'm very familiar with this. Very, very familiar with this. So, yeah.
But anyway, no, we're forging along, bit by bit, and there's going to be things happening coming up in the future. We both got stuff we're working on and doing.
Oh yeah. I just forgot the 6 hours I spent working on something yesterday that eventually I will tell y'all about. But...
Yeah. So good things, exciting things, fun things.
Trying to keep us excited to be doing it. No need for burnout here. No. Let's not live that life.
No.
Yeah.
So, on that note, though, I think it's time we say goodbye. It is getting warm in here and need to open doors again.
And my stomach keeps growling because I haven't had lunch yet. So I should probably eat lunch.
I ate lunch beforehand. I know better. Nobody wants to hear my stomach grumbling.
Well, you become, hangry.
True.
Yeah.
I don't deny it. It's a thing with me. Yeah. And you do, too, after a certain point.
But it takes me a little bit longer.
It does.
It takes me a little bit longer.
All right.
Anyway.
On that note. Wow, we went...
This show is officially about nothing.
Yep.
We're the kink version of the 2020s version of Seinfeld. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a show about nothing.
Probably. Yep.
I don't know. Anyway, we'll go now.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. If some of the changes that we are considering that we're going to have to talk about to see if that's what we want to do, we'll try to announce them in the places.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Okay.
And thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here with us. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Without y'all, we're just two weirdos talking to ourselves on the internet. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to go now.
Bye.
Bye.